It's a continuation of the previous video about the truth of Putin, Black Jesus. So it is more evidence of the truth of Jesus being black. So it's a continuation of the previous video. So Daniel chapter 10, Daniel vision of a man. In the 3rd year of Cyrus king of Persia, a revelation was given to Daniel, who was called Belteshazzar. Its message was true and it concerned a great war. The understanding of the message came to him in a vision. At that time I, Daniel, mourned for 3 weeks. I ate no choice food, no meat or wine touched my lips, and I used no lotions at all until the 3 weeks were over. On the 24th day of the 1st month, as I was standing on the bank of the great river, the Tigris, I looked up, and there before me was a man dressed in linen, with a belt of fine gold from Uphaz round his waist. His body was like topaz, his face like lightning, his eyes like flaming torches, his arms and legs like the gleam of burnished bronze, and his voice like the sound of a multitude. I, Daniel, was the only one who saw the vision. Those who were with me did not see it, but such terror overwhelmed them that they fled and hid themselves. So I was left alone, gazing at this great vision. I had no strength left, my face turned deathly pale, and I was helpless. Then I heard him speaking, and as I listened to him, I fell into a deep sleep, my face to the ground. A hand touched me and set me trembling on my hand and knees. He said, Daniel, you who are highly esteemed, consider carefully the words I am about to speak to you, and stand up, for I have now been sent to you. And when he said this to me, I stood up, trembling. 12. Then he continued, do not be afraid, Daniel. Since the first day that you set your mind to gain understanding and to humble yourself before your God, your words were heard, and I have come in response to them. But the prince of the Persian kingdom resisted me 21 days. Then Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me, because I was detained there with the king of Persia. Now I have come to explain to you what will happen to your people in the future, for the vision concerns a time yet to come. While he was saying this to me, I bowed with my face towards the ground and was speechless. Then one who looked like a man touched my lips, and I opened my mouth and began to speak. I said to the one standing before me, I am overcome with anguish because of the vision, my Lord, and I feel very weak. How can I, your servant, talk with you? My Lord, my strength is gone and I can hardly breathe. Again the one who looked like a man touched me and gave me strength. Do not be afraid, you who are highly esteemed. He said, peace, be strong now, be strong. When he spoke to me, I was strengthened and said, speak, my Lord, since you have given me strength. So he said, do you know why I have come to you? Soon I will return to fight against the prince of Persia. And when I go, the prince of Greece will come. But first I will tell you what is written in the book of truth. No one supports me against them except Michael, your prince. And in the 1st year of Darius the Mede, I took my stand to support and protect him. So in the previous video, I have already told you that the revelation of Black Jesus by Russian President Putin marks the fulfillment of this vision the Daniel vision of a man. The man clothed in linen, Jesus, who was detained by the king of Persia, the Russian country. And it has been said that the truth was hidden for over 2,000 years. But here it is written that I was detained there with the king of Persia. 13 says, but the prince of the Persian kingdom resisted me 21 days. But remember, a day is like 1,000 years. So this is the period that book of truth was there in hiding about Black Jesus. Because the secret was held from the world. We had to live in the lie. That explains the detainment. But before this 13, in the beginning it says, in the 3rd year of Cyrus, king of Persia, a revelation was given to Daniel. So it was hidden. It is part of a revelation that was given to Daniel, that something will be revealed in the future. And it continues and says, its message was true and it concerned a great war. And the understanding of the message came to him in a vision. Which great war is this? I've already told you in the previous video that the Gog and Magog war has not yet happened. Because the true Israelites are Africans. And in Kenya is the land of Israel. The main population, the true Israelites, main population, the old Jerusalem. In it is the Garden of the Eden. In it is the promised land, the Canaan. Now, I have already told you that Nalondo to Mabanga is the place of desolation, the land of promise, the ancient Canaan land. So, the message concerned a great war. So, this truth is the one which is going to trigger the great war, the Gog and Magog war, plus all the other nations, because they will try with the might that they have, because Africa to them is weak and poor. They are not advanced. So they will try with the advancement that they have to come and take the promised land from us, to try and make themselves be the heir. But God will not allow that to happen. That's why I told you the Gog and Magog war, it is not yet. And I have explained this in one of my videos about the Gog and Magog war, that during the desolation is when this Gog and Magog war will happen, when people have gathered at the throne of the Lord, the mountain of the Lord where it is supposed to be built. Currently, Faith Christian Church Nalondo. Because this is the place where the mountain of the Lord is supposed to be built. And this mountain of the Lord is the throne of God. So during the desolation is when they will gather, try to attack the city without walls. But at that moment, the Lord will be proved holy. So I'm not explaining it further, but I want to explain to you more about the truth of Black Jesus. So I was explaining about my journey, but I had to put a stop. But now I have to do something that I had to explain towards the end of my journey to prove more about the Black Jesus truth. I've told you that I was separated and I live in isolation to fulfill the will of God. I was separated from Kakamega 2021, and I had to start over in Nalondo. So, for over 1 year, I stayed without going to any church because I didn't want to go to any church. I wanted God to direct me to where I'm supposed to be. And during this period of isolation is when the Spirit of the Lord started revealing my purpose. And I was being prepared for this calling that I am having today. So it has been a long journey. So on my first day that I was sent to Faith Christian Church Nalondo, it was in 2022 in the month of November, and I stepped in Nalondo 2021 in the month of April. But my main calling started in 2022 during the August election. That's when I could hear the Spirit of God manifest even in dreams. I was being shaken mostly, trembled mostly, even at night. I was made to move in motion, trampling things, cutting things. Sometimes I will just hear a wind blow and then my body starts moving in motion, trembling. Or sometimes I will just hear like something tap my body and then I start moving in motion, trampling things. Sometimes like I'm just flying. So that is when my main calling started. And during this time, I was being reminded of the dreams of the rapture that I had before. The first one being in 2019. I have already explained these 3 different dreams in my previous YouTube videos. So I'm not explaining more. But I want to speak about more of the truth of the Black Jesus. So, on that day when I was already prepared and directed to go to Faith Christian Church Nalondo under Pastor Davis Ikea and Ruth Wekesa, this is what happened. Before, this church was just in a rental building, but there was an accumulated rent. So one time, the landlord visited me and he wanted that I assist him with the padlock. He found that I had none. So he went away. Later in the evening, I heard that he had locked the church. And which church was that? Faith Christian Church Nalondo under Pastor Davis' care. So this action took me by surprise, because in my right mind, I know it is not good to lock a church. But also I was bargaining in my mind that you have to give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar and to God what belongs to God. So the next day, something again happened, because I remember this evening before he went home, my landlord came and told me that these people of the church, they're not supposed to enter that church until they pay the accumulated rent. But in the morning, what happened shocked me. I don't know how they did it, but they managed to open the front door. Because what the landlord did, he only locked the back door. And when he locked that back door, the front door was still open. It was just open. They had not locked it. So that is how they managed to open and enter and have the service. So later, the landlord called me and asked me, I've been told that the church is opened, and I assured him and said to him that it is opened. So after this service, something again happened. Where I am situated in this building, we have 4 premises, but the adjacent homestead, it belongs to Difas Hatia, and Difas Hatia is a member of Faith Christian Church. So the adjacent homestead belongs to Difas Hatia, who is a member of Faith Christian Church, and he is a pastor too. And Difas is a widow. He has 3 daughters. And for the period that I have been staying at this place, mostly every Sunday, every morning, I will witness Difas and his daughters mostly carrying the equipment to church in preparation for the service. And again, the equipment that belongs to Faith Christian Church, they are always stored at his house. Furthermore, his daughter, Esther Katia, second-born daughter, mostly I used to witness her. Every Sunday, she dedicated herself in just cleaning the church. And remember, this is a man who is a widow. He only stays with her children, her daughters. But Esther Hatia, her second-born, she has a son named Mordecai. And this son was conceived before Esther completing her secondary school. But later she had to return and finish her secondary education. But when she conceived the son Mordecai, the late wife of Difas Hatia was still alive. But after some period, the wife died. So after this happening, I never used to go to that church, Faith Christian Church. But where I am situated, I am just very, very much close to Faith Christian Church in the rental building, because we are only separated by just one premise. So each Sunday's preachings and teachings I used to hear from my house as I was waiting for the Lord to direct me to the place where I was supposed to be. Now that I was new in Nalondo. But despite that, my children, my firstborn and secondborn, mostly each Sunday they used to attend service at Faith Christian Church. And I could even hear my daughter, Lindsay, my firstborn daughter, always singing in this church. So the worshippers at this church, most of them I was familiar with them. And above all, Pastor David Ikea, most of the time he used to approach me. He used to approach me asking, persuading me to just be a member of that church. And I used to tell him that I will come. I just used to tell him I will come. So I found the preachings was true. I found that the altar was true. Because as much as I was not going to church, with the revelations that God was giving me, mostly they were corresponding with the preachings and teachings of David Care. So after this thing that the landlord did, locking that church, after like about a week, I saw Differ's Hatia in his own homestead. There was some space that was left after the house that he had built. So his homestead is situated near the road. So this space that was left unoccupied, it was just free space. I later saw one day they were taking measurements and they were able to establish sketches. So when they did that, then the Spirit of the Lord revealed to me that a church is going to be established there. So Differ's Hatia, a member of Faith Christian Church, decided in his own land to give space so that the church will be established. And you find that Faith Christian Church Nalondo, it is not a huge church with many followers and worshippers. The followers are very few, but true followers. You can even count them. They are very, very few. So Differ's offered his own land, the free space, so that a church will be established. So the church stood there in sketches. So as much as I never attended Faith Christian Church, only I was just listening to the preachings and teachings, I was already attached to that church, Faith Christian Church. And I remember one day Pastor Ikea just came and told me a story that there was a man somewhere. He had shifted to a new place. So on a Sunday, he wanted to go to church and he never knew where he was supposed to go. So he decided to just leave home and just stroll. Then as he was strolling, he decided to enter a church, an unknown church to him. When he entered that church, he found that the people, the worshippers, were only few people. It was only like the pastor, the wife, the children, and some few worshippers. So as much as he was in the church, he was wrestling inside of him because he expected that he will find many worshippers in that church. So that man persevered until the end. But when he got home, he was still being stressed by that happening. And he was being convinced, but wrestling with this voice that was telling him that that is not the church meant for him. So he just decided to keep quiet. But also the wife was bothering him, telling him that they are supposed to go to a church that is full of people. So at this point, he decided to just switch on the TV. And when he switched on the TV, he found a preacher who was preaching. And the preacher, the word that that preacher spoke was a blow to him. The preacher's statement was saying that place where you have stepped, that place where you have gone and found it is like an empty place, that is the place where you are supposed to be. because you are the person who have been brought there to make that change in that church. So this statement of this preacher on TV haunted this man. And through the whole week, they were arguing with the wife telling him not to return to that church, but him saying that he's going to return to that church. Eventually on Sunday, through the grace of God Almighty, he was able to return back to that church. And over the time period that he was in that church, great changes and miracles happened. Truly through him, he was able to establish that church. Through him, many followers came to that church. So it was a time and season that was meant for him to fulfill God's purpose. And after fulfilling God's purpose, establishing that altar and that church, that is when eventually God directed him to his destiny, his own destiny, to the place where he was able to get his own land and establish a church that he himself became the owner of that church through God Almighty. So, Pastor David Ikea was telling me this story. And he eventually said, you never know, you have a purpose for you being shifted here. So after Difas Hatia established that sketch of this church, one day I was just busy doing the house chores, mopping, and I was almost to the back door to get outside from the main house. And I heard a voice speak to me that I will be cooking for the people of that church. So I was later recalling that voice and saying, how will I be cooking to the people of that church? And yet I'm not yet a member. At this point, I was just having so many revelations. And I knew I was being introduced to a calling, but I never knew the exact place where I'm supposed to be. So I was just waiting on the Lord, listening to his voice for the final direction to where I'm supposed to be. Then another thing followed. My firstborn daughter, Lindsay. At that time, 2022, she was 8 years old. One day she just woke up in the morning and told me that, Mom, I've heard a voice say to me that you will be a pastor and you will build a church. So as much as she was a kid, I never argued about it. Because in the physical eye, one may doubt of this voice. But remember, he is a God that uses anything to fulfill his will and purpose. He uses anything, even the things that appear small. So I just kept quiet. I never argued or said anything negative about it. I just replied to her and said amen. So after some time, another thing happened. Pastor Priscilla and Alex had come to our home in Mabanga for some prayers, because there was a secret altar that God had revealed that happened more than 20 years ago, that we were suffering from it as a family. So we were chained to a dark covenant. So this covenant that day is the day when with the prayers that were happening, we were being made free, canceling that dark altar. So I remember I never wanted to go, but my firstborn sister, Regina Juma, had called me and said that my fourth-born sister, Harriet Juma, who lives in Nakuru, she also has prayer meetings. And her pastor had told her that he saw angels dancing in our homestead in Mabanga. So Regina was convincing me to just go for that prayers, because this thing was done. I'll explain what happened when I narrate the stage steps to my glory, because it entails a lot. I'm just summarizing so that in the end you may be able to understand why Jesus is black. So this day, when the prayers happened, it happened during the day, and I came back to my place and we slept. So over the night, in a sleep, a deep sleep, I again heard a voice talking to me, saying that you will build a church. So again in the morning, my daughter Lindsay woke up and said to me that she had a dream. She had a dream that Emmanuel Jesus Power Ministry in Kakamega, this is my mother church, under my spiritual parents who bore me, Pastor Alex and Priscilla, that Emmanuel Jesus Power Ministry in Kakamega had acquired a new field and new chairs. And in that compound, there were many new cars that had parked in that compound. So this is the dream that my daughter had during that night. So we went on just doing our daily activities. Then another time and different day again, my daughter Lindsay again woke up and said to me that, "Mom, I've had another dream. I have dreamed that I had picked 5,000 shillings. And of these 5,000 shillings, 2,000 I have given you to pay rent. 2,000 I have given you to add stock for the shop. And I myself has remained with 1,000. So with this dream, I called Pastor Priscilla and Alex. But I mainly talked to Pastor Priscilla, and I told her about that dream. So Pastor Priscilla just said that although your daughter is young in the spiritual realm, as she grows, she will be a servant of the Lord. And the fact that that money was 5,000, and you find that it is distributed to rent and stock. She said that stock is glory. So there is a glory that you still have. And about this glory, my first prophecy came in 2019 when I was still in Kakamega. And also it came through Pastor Priscilla, who gave this prophecy through my sister Lynette, my second-born sister. She came and told me that Pastor Priscilla has said that you will have a glory. Now, so I continued praying, getting closer to God, being guided through many books. I will just take a Bible When I open that Bible, there is the place where I will get the message. Like the hand of the Lord was always working through me, opening the Bible pages and the Bible verses that I have to get the message from the Lord Almighty. So after these happenings, with the daily habit of I just reading the Bible, one evening I took the Bible, and on opening the Bible, it was Haggai 1, a call to build the Lord's house. So that is a message that God was confirming more to me, that I have that calling of building a church. So I just continued revelations, prayers. Then another time I had a dream and in that dream I was seeing a chick, not that small. It is between the age of being the chick, like, what will I say? What will I describe? Let me say a chick that is almost into maturity. So in a vision, I was seeing this chick, but it was withered. It had no health, it had no life. It was breathing, but ilikuwa imekauka. So I was having this vision. So I was wondering, what's the meaning of this vision? I waited on the Lord to give me the answer of this vision. So I just continued with prayer, and mostly at night, I being shaken, being in motion, or sometimes I will just feel like there is some light burning up my body, and then I begin in movement, being trembled and shaken, the whole of my body. And sometimes I will just begin in motion, like I am moving, although I'm sleeping, but I am in motion, moving. The trampling of things, nakanyaga vitu. And then my hands sometimes moving in motion, like as if I'm cutting some things. Or sometimes it's like I'm just flying. Yes, I am sleeping on my bed, but I am in motion, in movement. That's the thing that happened mostly during that 2022 August, from August towards the end.